All right, today we're diving into something pretty wild. It's a hugely speculative theory of everything, and it's called the Unified Fractal Resonance Framework, or UFRF for short. And the core idea? It's that the entire universe, from the tiniest particle all the way up to the biggest galaxy, is built from one single repeating geometric process.
So let's get right into it. The whole thing starts with a puzzle that really opens the door to this completely radical way of thinking. And the craziest part? This puzzle has been hiding in plain sight, right under the noses of scientists in almost every field imaginable.
See, this puzzle is all about a tool, a mathematical technique that scientists and engineers use literally every single day to make sense of the world.
Okay, so this tool is called Fourier analysis, and really it's the bedrock of all modern signal processing. We're talking about how your phone sends data, how an MRI lets doctors see inside you, how we analyze earthquakes, even the stock market. The point is, it seems to work on, well, everything.
And this right here, this is the central mystery. Why? I mean, think about it. Why on earth does the exact same mathematical trick that helps you stream a song also perfectly describe what subatomic particles are doing? What could sound waves, the stock market, and quantum mechanics possibly have in common? It doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Well, this is where the Unified Fractal Resonance Framework, UFRF, comes in, with a pretty startling answer. It basically says, hey, what if Fourier analysis isn't just some convenient math model we're slapping onto reality?
You see, the standard view is pretty simple. Fourier analysis is a useful tool, a good model that just happens to work well. But the UFRF view? It's way more radical. It claims it's not a model of reality, it's a direct description of reality. It's like we've found the universe's source code. The theory argues that this math works so well because the universe isn't just described by waves, it is waves.
So, here's the absolute crucial point. UFRF claims that what we call physical reality is actually made of these tiny, self-sustaining whirlpools of energy. They call them electromagnetic vortices. And these vortices are made of these interlocked electric and magnetic fields. So get this, when a scientist performs a Fourier transform, they're not just doing math on a computer. They are, according to this theory, literally breaking a physical phenomenon down into its core ingredients. Its electric part, the sine wave, and its magnetic part, the cosine wave.
Okay, so if reality is really made of these little energy whirlpools, how do they work? Well, UFRF proposes that there's a fundamental rhythm to everything, like a universal blueprint for how every single bit of energy and matter evolves. And this is that blueprint. The theory says every single one of these vortices goes through this exact 13-step cycle, from birth to completion. Now, you can see all the steps here, but the one I really want you to focus on is position 10. That's a really special moment in this whole process.
They call this the rest point, and it's basically like a gateway. The theory predicts that whenever a system, and I mean any system, big or small, hits this perfect balance point between its electric and magnetic fields, something amazing happens. It becomes super efficient at transferring energy from one form into another. And this boost in efficiency isn't just random. It's governed by a very, very specific geometric number.
And that magic number? It comes from one of the most famous numbers in all of math and geometry, the golden ratio, phi. Specifically, UFRF predicts it's the square root of phi, which is about 1.272. And this number, it claims, should be a universal signature, a kind of mathematical fingerprint left behind wherever energy is being efficiently transformed in nature.
So, the big question is, do we actually see this fingerprint in the real world? Let's check out the evidence the theory puts forward, because it jumps from the incredibly tiny all the way up to the truly cosmic. First up, let's look at something called sonoluminescence. Now, this is a real thing. You can look it up. You take a tiny bubble in water, you blast it with sound waves, and it suddenly collapses and gives off this incredibly bright flash of light. It's wild.
And for a long time, scientists have kind of struggled to explain exactly how sound turns into light like that. But UFRF has an answer. It claims that flash happens because the collapsing bubble hits that perfect E=B balance, opening up the rest gateway and converting sound energy into light with that maximum efficiency we were just talking about.
Okay, now let's scale things up a bit. And by a bit, I mean by about 30 orders of magnitude. We're going from a tiny bubble in a lab to a supermassive black hole in the center of a galaxy, eating a star.
So as matter gets sucked into a black hole, it blasts out these powerful bursts of X-rays. And UFRF claims that right at the edge of the black hole, in a region called the ergosphere,
the exact same E equals B balance is achieved. That rest gateway opens up again, and this time it's converting massive gravitational energy into high-energy light.
And this is maybe the theory's most powerful claim, that despite the absolutely insane difference in scale, in energy, in everything, both the tiny collapsing bubble and the giant black hole show the exact same spectral fingerprint. They both allegedly have that 1.272 enhancement factor, linking them together with a single universal geometric law.
Okay, but wait a minute. If the theory is so precise, if it's predicting these perfect geometric numbers, then why don't our scientific measurements always match up perfectly? Why does reality often seem so messy?
Well, UFRF's answer to that is really fascinating. It says the messiness, the discrepancies, they're actually part of the prediction. Think about it like this. If you shine a light on a 3D sphere, its shadow on the wall is a flat 2D circle. The shadow is a real observation, but it's a distorted projection of the real thing. The theory says our scientific measurements are just like that shadow.
So it proposes something called the projection law. It's a mathematical rule that supposedly predicts exactly how a true intrinsic value will look to us from our specific point of view, our scale in the universe. So what this means is that those discrepancies we see in our data, they aren't errors at all. They're predictable, even necessary, features of just being an observer. Okay, let's take a concrete example. The theory might predict that the true value for an energy gap in an atom's nucleus is, say, 8.5 million electron volts. But then the projection law calculates that from where we're standing, from our human scale, we won't see 8.5. We should see a slightly distorted value, 8.3 MeV. And what's crazy is, that's exactly what experiments find. The theory even takes a shot at explaining huge mysteries like dark matter, suggesting maybe it's not some mysterious new stuff, but just another one of these projection effects.
So, if this whole framework of vortices and cycles and projections is actually right, where else does it apply? Well, according to the theory, the answer is basically everywhere. The scope here is honestly breathtaking.
I mean, this one single geometric process is claimed to be the source code for, well, everything. It claims to explain the fundamental constants of physics, the numbers that define our universe. It claims that prime numbers aren't random, but that they actually mark stable points in that 13-step cycle we saw. It even goes into biology, saying the double helix of our DNA is shaped the way it is because it's aligning with that stable rest position. And then it goes for the biggest question of all, suggesting consciousness itself is what happens when enough of these little vortices in our brain get in sync.
So that leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. Look, it's a fascinating and totally unproven idea for sure, but it really challenges us to think about what math even is and what the universe is made of. What if the deepest truths aren't hidden in complicated particles, but in the simple, elegant dance between a sine and a cosine wave? What if the universe isn't just described by beautiful math, but at its very core it is beautiful math?